What does it really mean to understand the meaning of life? Have you ever wondered what it takes to truly grasp it? Fyodor Dostoevsky didn't just brush the surface. He dared to unveil the deepest, darkest truths of human existence. But what does that mean for us today? Are we ready to face those harsh realities, to look straight into the heart of life's complexity? If you're willing to meet that challenge, this video will show you why Dostoevsky is celebrated as the writer who truly understood what it means to be human. But before we dive in, ask yourself, are you prepared for what you might discover? Our journey begins in 1821 in Moscow with the birth of a boy who would, without knowing it, change the landscape of literature forever. Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoevsky, or simply Dostoevsky to those who knew him well. Raised in a middle-class family, he was drawn to profound ideas, philosophy, and literature from an early age. Interestingly, his journey started far from the literary world. He initially trained as a military engineer in St. Petersburg. Yet, like many geniuses before him, he soon realized his true calling lay elsewhere. In 1846, he published his debut novel, Poor Folk, which won acclaim from critics and readers alike. However, Dostoevsky's life was anything but smooth. In 1849, he was arrested for being part of a revolutionary group that dared to challenge the Tsar's regime. The worst happened. He was sentenced to death. Imagine the terror of that moment. But at the very last second, his execution was halted, and his sentence was reduced to 4 years of brutal forced labor in Siberia's freezing wilderness, followed by 6 more years of military service. This harsh ordeal deeply affected Dostoevsky's soul. When he returned, he came back transformed, with a darker, more contemplative outlook on suffering, guilt, redemption, freedom, and faith. By 1859, once freed, he returned to St. Petersburg, and that's when his creative brilliance truly blossomed. From that point on, Dostoevsky wrote some of the most enduring masterpieces in world literature, influencing countless writers and philosophers for generations. He passed away at 59 in 1881 due to a pulmonary hemorrhage, yet his legacy endures strongly today. Thinkers like Kafka, Nietzsche, Freud, Camus, and Sartre all drew inspiration from his boundless well of ideas. His stories captured the complexities of human struggle like no other, presenting characters that force us to ponder life's biggest questions. Speaking of profound questions, let's explore one of his most thought-provoking works, Notes from Underground, published in 1864. This novel hits you like a punch in the gut, a raw, intense meditation on the human condition. The narrator is a nameless man who describes himself as sick, wild, and disagreeable, living in isolation from society and from himself. In his writings, he divides his thoughts into 2 parts. The first contains his meditations on human nature, science, morality, and freedom. The second recounts episodes from his youth, shaped by humiliation and scorn, that forged his perspective on life. With his genius, Dostoevsky challenges us to confront unsettling questions. Are we truly free, or are we prisoners of our own contradictions? His narrator swings between bitterness and empathy, exposing the intricacies of human behavior. And the core message is clear. Despite everything, the act of living is what matters most. As Dostoevsky himself said, "To live no matter how is always better than to give up." So get ready. Dostoevsky not only understood life more deeply than most, but he also compels us to question it like never before. Humans are often depicted as rational beings, striving for their own well-being and that of others. But here they are portrayed through a very different lens. Contrary to conventional beliefs, we are impulsive and contradictory creatures, frequently making choices that undermine our own happiness. Inside each of us burns a powerful desire for freedom, so strong that we sometimes act against logic and harmony just to satisfy it. We insist on living according to our own will, even if it disrupts our peace. Because paradoxically, this very sense of autonomy is our only true path to happiness. This idea directly challenges the dominant values of the modern world at the time, which exalted progress, science, and reason as unshakable foundations. As the world moved toward industrialization and secularization, the narrator felt alienated, like a stranger in a familiar place. His rebellion against the system was his way of protecting something he deemed essential, a genuine life, even if it meant retreating to a metaphorical underground far from civilization and its dazzling lights. This rejection of societal norms reveals both pride and independence, but also a profound anguish reflecting the heavy cost of his choice. Freedom, so idealized, is shown to be riddled with pitfalls. He struggles to find meaning, fails to live fully, and cannot connect deeply with others or even with himself. With remarkable insight, Dostoevsky turns this inner journey into a meditation on the human condition in the modern era. We exist in a world without a clear God, fixed values, or predetermined boundaries, where freedom is both a blessing and a crushing responsibility. In such a landscape, it falls to each individual to craft their own sense of meaning, develop a personal morality, and pursue happiness, even if this path exposes us to vulnerability, dilemmas, and paradoxes. But how do we navigate this challenge? How do we uncover meaning amid disorder? Dostoevsky doesn't offer simple solutions. Instead, he invites us to reflect, experiment, and search. He suggests that life's meaning isn't a fixed truth, but something constructed daily through the choices we make and the relationships we build. He also implies that while individuality matters, true purpose goes beyond the self and connects us to something greater, be it spirituality, faith, or community. Ultimately, the light we seek lies beyond the underground. It is found on the surface, within the experiences we live and the bonds we forge. This perspective is echoed in his masterpiece, Crime and Punishment, where we follow Raskolnikov, a former student who commits murder to test a theory. He believes that certain exceptional people have the right to violate laws and moral codes for grander purposes. Drawing inspiration from figures like Napoleon, Raskolnikov tries to rationalize his crime as a necessary, even noble act. But reality asserts itself. Guilt and remorse become unbearable. His so-called freedom turns into a prison, with his conscience serving as the harshest jailer. Dostoevsky contrasts these so-called extraordinary individuals with ordinary people who abide by rules and live conventional, conformist lives. While the former push boundaries and aspire to reshape the world, the latter find comfort in stability and predictability. Yet Raskolnikov soon realizes that his theory falls apart when put into practice. He cannot endure the aftermath of his deed, and most importantly, he cannot escape the relentless judgment imposed by his own conscience. This inner turmoil is skillfully portrayed through the character of Detective Porfiry Petrovich, whose clever mind pushes Raskolnikov to the brink of collapse. Ultimately, the notion of absolute freedom is exposed as a mere illusion, and the true challenge is to find a delicate balance between our lofty ambitions and our inherent human limitations. Dostoevsky leaves us with a profound message. to confront our own darkest depths, not to be overwhelmed by them, but to learn how to build paths toward the light. Raskolnikov's internal conflict is fierce. On one side, reason and pride convince him he is superior, an extraordinary individual. On the other, feelings of empathy, compassion, and the weight of shared humanity that he struggles to suppress. Caught between these forces is Sonia, a humble woman who, despite everything, loves and understands him as no one else can. Sonia represents faith and kindness. Even surrounded by hardship and sin, she breaks down the walls around Raskolnikov's heart, awakening a love within him that he barely realized existed. She becomes his guide to redemption, urging him to confess his crimes and accept the consequences. When he is sentenced to Siberia, she remains by his side, supporting him as he regains his humanity and reconciles with God and life itself. Through their relationship, Dostoevsky presents a compelling vision of human freedom, not as an absolute or arbitrary right, but something deeply tied to our emotions, convictions, and values. True freedom demands responsibility, repentance, and inner transformation. Crime and Punishment serves as a profound invitation to ponder the human experience, the struggles between good and evil, and the quest for forgiveness and salvation. From there, Dostoevsky takes us to another towering work, The Brothers Karamazov. Published in 1880, this epic tale centers on a fractured family. Fyodor Pavlovich, the dissolute father, and his four sons, Dmitri, Ivan, Alyosha, and Smerdyakov, are entangled in ongoing conflicts that ultimately culminate in the father's murder. But this story is about much more than just a crime. It explores the profound moral, spiritual, and psychological questions that permeate human existence. Each character reflects a distinct aspect of human nature. Dmitri, the eldest, embodies raw passion and impulse. Living on the edge, he swings between generosity and violence. Burdened by guilt, he seeks redemption through love and sacrifice. Ivan is the thinker, the skeptic and rationalist. He questions God's existence and universal morality. For Ivan, without God, all things become permissible. Though he doesn't physically commit the crime, his ideas heavily influence it, making him, in a sense, an intellectual accomplice. His relentless pursuit of truth ultimately consumes him. Alyosha, the youngest, is the moral center of the tale. Guided by faith and compassion, he believes that love is the only true path to salvation. He strives tirelessly to mend the family and avert disaster, but his gentle nature proves powerless against the surrounding turmoil. Lastly, there is Smerdyakov, the illegitimate son, a shadowy figure living on the outskirts of the family. Cold and manipulative, he is driven by jealousy and bitterness. He is the one who commits the murder, doing so without remorse, motivated solely by a desire for power and vengeance. Dostoevsky does not offer simple solutions. He avoids labeling any character as purely hero or villain. Instead, he encourages us to examine the contradictions within each individual and to reflect on how good and evil coexist and intertwine within every human being. He reveals that these forces are not fixed or separate, but fluid and interconnected, shaped continuously by our decisions and deeds. Ultimately, Dostoevsky's message is unmistakable. What truly shapes our fate is how we confront these inner struggles and the responsibilities they impose on us. If you are also a fan of Dostoevsky, feel free to share in the comments which of his works resonate most with you. Of course, this overview leaves out many of his other great works, The Adolescent, The Devils, White Nights, to name a few. Covering everything would take hours, which is why I encourage you to explore Dostoevsky's writings further and to dive into the rich and captivating world of Russian literature in general. Now, I want to share something very special with you. An excerpt from a letter Dostoevsky wrote to his brother on the day he believed he was about to be executed. It is one of the most powerful and moving texts I have ever encountered, and I hope you feel the deep impact of these words. And of course, if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Letter from Fyodor Dostoevsky to his brother. Today, December 22nd, they took us to the parade ground of the Semyonovsky Regiment. There, the death sentence was read aloud to all of us. We were given crosses to kiss, and our execution clothes were prepared. Then, three at a time, they tied us to posts. I was in the second group, with less than a minute left to live. In that moment, my thoughts turned to you, my brother. You filled my mind completely. Only then did I realize how deeply I love you. I embraced Fletch and Durov, who were beside me, and bid them farewell. When the signal sounded, I believed it was the end. Suddenly, those who were tied to the posts were brought back, and a decree was announced. His Imperial Majesty had granted us clemency. Following that, the official sentences were delivered. My brother, I did not let despair take hold, nor did I lose my courage. Life is precious, regardless of where or how it is lived. I discovered that life does not exist outside us, but within. Wherever I find myself, I will be among people. To be human, to hold on to courage, and to persevere no matter what. That is the true meaning of life. That is what gives everything purpose. I felt that the mind that once thrived on art, that once breathed the pure air of creativity, seemed to have faded away. Yet my heart continues to beat, full of love, capable of empathy, of pain, and of memory. That's what truly matters. That is living, even in the face of hardship. Please don't mourn for me. I have never felt so spiritually alive as I do right now. But will my body endure? I cannot say. My God, so many thoughts and creations still linger inside me, waiting to be born. If I cannot write them down, it will feel like dying. Looking back, I see how much time I've wasted. Errors, laziness, failing to embrace life fully. So many times I ignored my heart and rejected my own soul. That stings, but now I understand. Every moment is a gift. Life itself is an indescribable joy. Each instant holds a piece of eternity. So what do you think? Did these words move you? Dostoevsky's reflection is a powerful reminder to cherish life and the time we are given. If it resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. The journey doesn't end here. More stories lie ahead, ready to touch your soul deeply. And hey, you, yes, you who made it this far, I want to share something special. Picture this, the final scene of a film. The lights dim, the sound fades, and the screen goes dark. But before the credits roll, a soft, sincere voice speaks directly to the one who stayed until the very last moment. That's the feeling I want to share now. You chose to dive deep into Dostoevsky's world, a writer who understood the human soul like few others. Just as he explored life's darkest abysses and highest peaks, you have faced your own reflections throughout this video. To me, that is the essence of courage. Because let's be honest, not everyone dares to confront such profound themes with an open heart. Here's a secret. When I began creating this content, my greatest hope was that it would reach someone like you. Someone searching for meaning, someone brave enough to look beneath life's shiny surface and connect with something deeper. And here we are. You know, Dostoevsky believed every moment of life is a precious gift, and being here with you now feels like proof of that truth. So all I can say is thank you, not just for watching until the end, but for being one of those rare souls willing to think deeply, to feel deeply, and maybe even to question. I see you as a fellow traveler, and no matter how many stories remain to be told, I want you to know you are not alone. We're building something meaningful here together. So my friend, keep that fire burning. The world needs more people who live with the intensity that you do. Until the next story.